My dad called it hard work. I called it what it was, making my 10-year-old son scrub his warehouse floor until his knees bled while the cousins filmed and laughed. I didn't scream. I watched. I remembered every detail. Then I changed everything. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I love seeing how far these stories travel. My name is Rachel Cole, and for most of my life I played the reasonable one in my family. My dad, Walter, ran a small furniture warehouse on the edge of town. My older brother, Greg, was his shadow, loud, confident, never wrong. I was the one with the easy skills, spreadsheets, contracts, making sure the bills got paid on time so their kingdom of stacked couches and dining sets didn't collapse. Dad liked to say, "The men handle the real work. Rachel keeps the paperwork pretty." It wasn't a compliment. It was a reminder of my place. My son Caleb is 10. Skinny shoulders, brown hair that never lies flat, big hazel eyes behind smudged glasses. He loves drawing floor plans and Lego cities more than anything that involves yelling or running. At family dinners, Greg's boys, Ryan, 13, and Chase, 11, called him Professor and snickered when he didn't want to wrestle. "Don't raise him soft," Dad warned me more than once. "A boy needs to learn sweat." I thought that meant chores, maybe helping in the warehouse on weekends. I was wrong. For a few months, Dad had been asking to train Caleb on Saturdays. "Just a couple of hours," he'd say. "Ryan and Chase help with deliveries. Let the boy learn. He spends too much time staring at screens." I resisted at first. Then the guilt started. I'm a single mom. My ex-husband sends child support and birthday cards from another state. But day to day, it's just me and Caleb. I work full-time as an accountant. Some days it feels like my brain is made of overdue notices and grocery lists. So when Dad said, "Let him be with the men, I'll teach him work ethic," it sounded like help. Like one thing I could cross off the list of ways I might be failing my kid. The first Saturday, Caleb came home tired but proud. "Grandpa showed me how to wrap couches in plastic," he told me. "He said I did good." I checked his arms for bruises out of habit. Nothing. I exhaled. That's how it starts, I guess. You see one safe day and assume the rest match. Over the following weeks, Caleb grew quieter about those Saturdays. He still went, still climbed into the truck with his backpack and a juice box, but his eyes stopped lighting up when he talked about it. That should have been a red flag. Instead, I filed it under, "He's just tired." Kids are tired. Adults are tired. Everyone's tired, right? Keep moving. Then came that Saturday. I dropped Caleb at the warehouse a little after 10. The concrete lot shimmered in the heat. Greg's pickup was already there, music thumping from the open bay doors. Dad stood outside drinking coffee like a foreman, surveying his empire. "Don't baby him," Dad called as Caleb climbed out of the car. "You'll see. In a few months, he'll be a different kid." I forced a smile and drove off to run errands. Groceries, pharmacy, gas. My usual rotation. I had this picture in my head of my son pushing a dolly under supervision, laughing with his cousins, learning how to coil straps and tape boxes. Reality was 20 miles away and completely different. Around 1, my phone buzzed while I was in the checkout line. A notification from an app I'd forgotten I even had. The old security camera system I installed for their office when I redid their insurance paperwork. Motion detected. Warehouse Bay 1. I almost ignored it. Then another ping. And another. 5, 6, 7 in a row. On a bored impulse, I tapped the notification. The live feed loaded in grainy color. It took my brain a second to understand what I was seeing. Caleb was on his knees on the concrete, hands plunged into a gray lake of dirty water, scrubbing a long grease streak that ran the length of the bay. No knee pads, no gloves, just his skinny legs in soaked jeans, his sneakers leaving wet prints as he crawled. Ryan and Chase leaned against a stack of boxes, phones out, recording. "Faster, Caleb!" Greg's voice boomed from somewhere off camera. "You move like an old man!" My dad's voice cut in, sharp and impatient. "Get up, boy. Don't drag your knees. Use your back. Don't be lazy." Caleb tried to stand. His feet slipped. He hit the floor hard, palms splaying, shoulders shaking. Even through the low audio, I heard a sound that froze me. The little broken inhale my kid makes when he's trying hard not to cry. "Come on!" Greg laughed. "Ryan did that whole aisle in half an hour? You gonna be outdone by your little cousin, or what?" "I'm tired," Caleb said. His voice was small, swallowed by the echo of the warehouse. "My hands hurt." Dad stepped into frame then, kicking a bucket closer to him. "You think people care about your hands when rent's due? Get up. You're breathing, aren't you? Then keep scrubbing." Ryan turned his camera toward Dad and snorted. "This is quality content, Grandpa." I must have left my cart right there in the aisle, because the next thing I remember is my keys in my hand and my heart trying to break my ribs as I drove. No plan, just a straight-line panic to that warehouse. The bay doors were half open when I pulled in. Music still pounded, some old rock playlist Dad liked to pretend made him one of the guys again. I killed my engine and walked toward the opening, every step heavier than the last. Inside, the heat hit first. The place smelled like dust, sweat, and cleaning chemicals. Caleb was still on the floor in the middle of a huge, smeared wet patch, scrubbing at the darkest part. His shirt clung to his back. His hair stuck to his forehead. Red splotches bloomed across his knees and palms. "Come on, Professor," Chase jeered from the sidelines. "You gonna cry about soap?" "Maybe his mom will come mop for him," Ryan added. "She likes cleaning up after everyone." My father sat on a folding chair by the office door, arms crossed, expression stone hard, supervisor of the humiliation. "Caleb," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it sliced through the noise. His head jerked up, the terror that flashed across his face when he saw me hurt worse than anything I'd already witnessed. "Mom, He stopped, eyes darting to my dad. Walter didn't flinch. "Rachel, you can't just walk into my workplace and—" "This isn't work," I said. I stepped onto the wet concrete, my sneakers soaking instantly. "This is my child on his knees while grown men yell at him." Greg came out from behind a stack of boxes, sweat-dark shirt clinging to his chest, a rag in one hand. "Don't be dramatic, Rach. It's training. We all did this growing up. Builds character." I looked at Caleb's raw, trembling hands. "Does it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks more like free child labor and a YouTube short." "Hey, it's not YouTube, it's just—" Ryan started, then shut up when Greg shot him a look. Dad pushed himself up from the chair, slow and deliberate. "He needs to learn. School doesn't teach kids what life's really like. I am. Men don't get to sit behind desks and cry when things are hard." Caleb swallowed. "Grandpa said if I finished all 3 aisles, I could go home early," he whispered. I stared at my father. "Did you pay him?" "What?" He frowned as if I'd spoken a different language. "Did you pay him?" I repeated. "For his labor, for cleaning your warehouse floors." "He's family," Dad snapped. "Family helps family." "No," I said sharply. "Family protects children. Businesses pay workers." Greg rolled his eyes. "Here we go. Lecture time. You always twist everything into drama." I crouched next to Caleb and gently took the sponge from his hand. "Go change, honey. Get your bag. We're leaving." His shoulders sagged with relief so intense it scared me. He pushed himself up slowly, wincing when his knees straightened. Dad's voice boomed. You walk out now. He learns he can quit whenever something hurts. You're raising him to be weak. I stood, every muscle in my body shaking. No, I said softly. I'm teaching him that people who love you don't make you bleed to prove it. Greg snorted. It's a couple of scrub burns, Rachel. He'll live. And you, I added, turning to my brother, are never allowed to put my son in one of your videos again. Delete whatever you recorded. You can't tell me what to. Actually, I can. I cut in. Or I can call a lawyer and talk about minors being filmed while doing unpaid manual labor in unsafe conditions. That landed. For a second, real fear flickered across Greg's face. Dad jutted his chin out. You wouldn't. We're family. Funny, I said, because nothing about what I'm looking at feels like family. Caleb reappeared from the tiny bathroom in dry shorts and his faded dinosaur t-shirt, backpack clutched to his chest. He hovered by the exit. Come on, buddy, I said, moving toward him. You walk out that door, Dad said, and don't expect us to be here when you come crawling back. We've carried you for years. Don't forget that. He meant the loans, the favors, the times I'd co-signed. The fact that their mortgage, their insurance, their line of credit all had my name somewhere in the fine print. For a long time, that sentence would have slammed guilt right through me. Today, it just made things clear. I remember exactly what I've carried, I told him, and I'm finally setting it down. Then I took my son's hand and walked out of that warehouse, leaving their shouting voices bouncing off the concrete behind us like bad echoes from a life I was done living. In the car, Caleb rested his head against the window, eyes glassy. I'm sorry I didn't tell you, he whispered. My throat tightened. You did tell me, I said. I just didn't listen fast enough. That's on me, not you. He looked at his bandaged palms. Am I weak? I shook my head. No. You're a kid who worked until his hands hurt because adults told him he had to. That's not weakness. That's trust. They abused it. That ends today. He nodded slowly, a tiny thread of relief winding through his features. That night, after he fell asleep on the couch with ice packs on his knees, I opened my laptop, logged into my banking apps, and pulled up every auto payment that had my family's name on it. Mortgage top-ups, warehouse insurance, truck payment, utility bills that always got messed up until I fixed them. Even the credit card they used for gas and emergencies. For years, I'd been the invisible foundation holding their lives steady. With one click at a time, I started removing myself. Not out of revenge, out of self-respect. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Calm. The first week after I canceled everything was quiet. Unnaturally quiet, like the moment after a clock stops ticking and you suddenly realize how loud it used to be. Caleb went back to spending Saturdays at home. We made pancakes that came out lumpy, watched DIY videos about building model cities, and argued about which superhero would make the best mayor. He limped a little when he walked, but the color came back to his face. He started humming again. I hadn't even noticed when he'd stopped. On Tuesday, the texts began, first from Greg. Greg. Hey sis, the bank says the truck payment bounced? Greg, can you check your app? Probably a glitch. I stared at the screen for a full minute before typing. Me, not a glitch. I canceled all auto pays for you and Dad. You'll need to cover your own bills from now on. The reply came fast. Greg, are you serious right now over some mopping? Greg, you're really going to tank the whole business because Caleb got a little tired? I put the phone down without answering. An hour later, it buzzed again. This time, my mom. Mom. Honey, The electric company just called. They said our payment didn't go through. Is everything okay with your account? Yes, Mom. My account is finally okay. Me. My account is fine. I'm just not paying your bills anymore. Dad and Greg are running a business. They can handle it. There was a long pause. I pictured her in the kitchen, dish towel in one hand, phone in the other, eyes darting toward my father in his recliner. Mom, your father says you're overreacting. Boys need to learn work. You're making trouble where there is none. I exhaled slowly. Me. Caleb is 10. He's not warehouse staff. He's not a cleaner. He's a kid. You all made him scrub until he bled and laughed while you filmed it. That's not learning work. That's abuse. I'm done funding people who think that's acceptable. She didn't respond. Instead, my father called. I let it go to voicemail. He tried again and again. On the fourth call, I answered because I didn't want Caleb to think I was afraid. Rachel, he said, voice clipped. Explain yourself. Hi, Dad, I said. Which part is confusing? The part where I protect my kid? Or the part where grown men pay their own bills? You ungrateful girl, he snapped. Everything you have is because I raised you right. And this is how you repay us? You humiliate your own father over a chore? I'm not humiliating you, I said calmly. You did that when you put a 10-year-old on his knees and called it character. He scoffed. He'll thank me one day. Meanwhile, you're destroying the business. Do you know what happens if we miss another truck payment? They'll take it. No truck, no deliveries. No deliveries, no income. We could lose the warehouse. I leaned against the counter and watched Caleb in the living room, sprawled on the rug, drawing tiny buildings with meticulous care. I'm sorry you're dealing with consequences, I said. But those are your consequences. I won't pay for them anymore. And Caleb will never set foot in that warehouse again. You think you're doing him a favor? Dad said. You're making him soft, weak. The world will eat him alive. No, I replied. You tried to teach him that love looks like pain and shame. I'm teaching him that it doesn't. He went quiet for a beat. When he spoke again, his voice was low and dangerous. If you walk away from this family, don't expect us to be there when you need us. I almost laughed. When's the last time I called you for help, Dad? I've been bailing you out for a decade. I think we both know who needed who. He hung up on me. I stared at the phone, waiting for the familiar surge of guilt and panic. It didn't come. Instead, there was just space. That night, I documented everything. Screenshots from the security feed, photos of Caleb's raw knees and palms, a timeline of what happened. I didn't hit send on any official complaints yet, but the file sat there on my desktop like a loaded safety net. Not a threat. A boundary with teeth. Days passed. The calls kept coming, bouncing off the voicemail wall I'd finally built. Then the 2-week mark hit, and things started to unravel. Mom texted first. Mom, they sent a final notice about the property tax. Your father is furious. He says you're punishing all of us. Me, I'm stepping out of a role I never agreed to. Family ATM. Mom, we'll lose the house. Me. Then Dad and Greg need to talk to a financial advisor. Maybe sell the truck. Maybe stop spending business money on new TVs and weekend trips. You have options. I'm just not one of them anymore. Silence. The next day, a picture popped up in the old family group chat. A bright orange boot clamped onto the front tire of my dad's beloved pickup. Greg had tried to make a joke out of it. Look what the city gifted us. But the panic behind the emoji was obvious. Caleb happened to see my phone when the notification flashed. He frowned. Is that Grandpa's truck? Yeah, I said. Looks like he forgot to renew something. Caleb studied the image for a moment. Are you gonna fix it for him? I looked at my son, at the faint scars still healing on his knees. No, I said. This time he has to fix it himself. Caleb nodded slowly, as if testing the idea on his tongue. Like natural consequences, he murmured. Ms. Alvarez talked about that in science, actions and reactions. Exactly, I said. Newton would be proud. The calls shifted over the next few days from anger to bargaining. Greg's wife, Jenna, left a long voicemail dripping in sugar. Rachel, hey, it's Jenna. Look, I get you're upset. Believe me, I do. But the boys are really hurting. They don't understand why their cousin doesn't come around anymore. And now the soccer league is talking about suspending their team because the fees are late and... I stopped the message there. I'd heard this script my whole life. Think of the children. The children they weaponized when it was convenient, the same ones they used as props to bully my son. I blocked the group chat. Then I did something that would have terrified the old me. I changed my phone number. I gave it only to people whose first instinct about my son was to protect, not toughen. Neighbors, school, my best friend, Lauren, who had offered more than once to show up at that warehouse with a lawyer and an entire HR department's worth of rage. One evening, about 3 weeks after the warehouse incident, I stood in line at the grocery store and saw my father in the next aisle over. He looked smaller somehow. The man who used to stride through life like a general now moved carefully, shoulders slightly hunched. He had a stack of overdue envelopes in his hand and a cheap brand of coffee in his cart instead of the fancy stuff he used to buy. Our eyes met. For a second, something like his old authority flashed there, like he was about to bark orders across the cereal display. Instead, he looked away first. The power shift was almost physical. Not triumph, not revenge, just a quiet click of reality falling into its proper place. At home that night, Caleb sat at the kitchen table working on a poster project. Mom? He asked. Yeah? Grandpa tried to talk to me in the hallway at school today. My stomach tightened. What did he say? He said, You know your mom turned her back on her own father, right? That's not what good daughters do. I clenched the dish towel in my hand. And what did you say? Caleb shrugged. I told him good fathers don't make kids scrub floors on their knees. I swallowed hard. He got mad, Caleb added. But I walked away, like you said. No speeches, just walked. My chest burned, not with anger this time, but with something fierce and tender. That, I said, is strength. He smiled, a real easy smile that reached his eyes. I'm starting to like these new rules, he admitted. Me too, I said. We finished homework, watched a dumb baking show, argued over which cake looked best. Ordinary life. Soft, boring, safe. The kind of life people like my dad think is weakness, and I now recognize as wealth. Meanwhile, through distant relatives and small-town gossip, I heard pieces of how things were going for my father and brother. The warehouse struggled without the extra credit line I'd co-signed. Late fees stacked up. They lost their bulk discount with a supplier. A minor accident with an uninsured temp worker turned into an expensive lawsuit. None of it was my doing. I hadn't sabotaged anything, hadn't made anonymous calls, hadn't wished them harm. I'd simply stepped out of the way of consequences that were always barreling toward them. Without my money, my spreadsheets, my midnight fixes, their old school way finally had to stand on its own. It didn't. One afternoon, months later, I got a letter from the bank addressed to me out of habit. I opened it, ready to call and remind them my name was no longer attached to that account. Instead, I read the words, repossession completed, and felt nothing. No victory, no glee. Just relief that, legally, I was officially untangled. I closed the letter, tossed it in the trash, and went back to helping Caleb glue tiny cardboard buildings onto his model city. "Do you think I could be an architect one day?" he asked, eyes shining. "I think you can be whatever doesn't require mopping warehouses for free," I said lightly. He laughed, then grew serious. "Mom, thanks for coming to get me that day." I looked at him, really looked. The steadier shoulders, the easier smile, the way he took up a little more space in the room now, like he believed he was allowed to. "Thanks for calling me," I answered. "You trusted me more than I trusted myself. That's not going to happen again." He nodded, satisfied, and went back to his city. My dad still thinks I ruined his life. Greg still tells anyone who'll listen that I overreacted and tore the family apart. Maybe, from their side of the story, that's true. From mine, I finally learned the difference between being loyal and being used. I didn't torch their world. I just stopped holding up walls they kept punching holes in. And honestly, watching my son grow up in a house where his worth isn't measured in bruises or unpaid labor is worth every angry voicemail I'll never hear. But that's my side. What about you? If you were in my place, would you have cut them off completely or tried to find a softer path? Where do you draw the line between keeping the peace and protecting your child?